and welcome to my little bit at acceptance. So anyway, every year, and this has been going on for over a decade now, I swear it gets to be early November, people are prematurely getting into Christmas mode, and I am seeing online and especially on social media, what's your favorite Christmas movie that isn't actually a Christmas movie? And of course, Die Hard is the one you always hear thrown around. And it did kind of get me thinking just in the last year or two that, do I have any of those myself? Well, I've come up with four, and one of them is one of those really common ones, but we'll start with that one. Then we'll get into some more relatively deep cuts. But yeah, here are my four favorite Christmas movies that aren't actually Christmas movies. As I said, I'll start with the big one here, and this is going to seem so absolutely on brand for me. Gremlins. Now, having said that, it's not because I'm some sort of, horrible hipster type or anything, but it took me until just 2018 or 19 to finally see this one. And again, that sounds totally strange for me, but yeah, it's one of those movies that everybody seems to really like. It's had a really great shelf life, and I just never managed to see it. I never had any aversion to it or anything. It's just, for whatever reason, it never happened. So anyway, either 18 or 19, I was at Walmart buying groceries or whatever and taking a totally unnecessary spin through the movies and music. At the time, they still had the big tubs of $5 DVDs. And maybe they still do, though the one in my neck of the woods doesn't. But anyway, yeah, right at the top of the heap was Gremlins. And I figured, yeah, I've heard about it a ton of times, but I've never seen it. $5, yeah, I don't have to worry about rentals, returning it, or having some sort of expiration date on it, like with streaming, any of the streaming services. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and pick it up. Well, I popped it in on Christmas Day, and I got it immediately. I can see why people like this one. It's a really good, really fun movie. It's comedy and horror, but it leans much more towards comedy. Granted, black comedy all too often, but everything is done really well, and it does so with just such a wonderful sense of humor that even at its most utterly sick, it's still it seems kind of acceptable, as strange as that sounds. Like the one gremlin that blows up in the microwave, the scene that everybody remembers from it. But yeah, the acting is good. I loved the little gremlins. There's so many great little jokes to it. I love movies with little kind of hidden jokes to them, and they're real good. The couple of cameos in it, Chuck Jones kind of looking on in disgust at one of his own cartoons being shown on TV, that sort of thing. So yes, I absolutely get this one. The only downside to this one is my all-time favorite Christmas song, Christmas Baby Please Come Home, Darlene Love, it plays over the opening credits, and it's slightly warped, that one, for me. Now, I do have another bit of a confession to make regarding Gremlins. As am I making this, I still haven't seen Gremlins 2. All right, now let's start getting into some relatively deeper cuts here. Now, I've only ever owned this one on Laserdisc, but it has found its way to DVD over the years, and possibly even Blu-ray now. But it's a movie I don't hear discussed a whole lot. Rover Dangerfield. So Rodney Dangerfield playing a dog, and it was Dangerfield's big stab at an animated film. And I've heard stories that it was supposed to be more adult, and then the studio wanted more of a kid's film and all that, and it was kind of a mess production-wise. But I still, for the most part, enjoy it. Now, there's only one sequence of this that takes place over the holidays, but it's, to me, the most memorable part. And indeed, when I found a copy of the soundtrack album of this in a used record store years ago, this probably would have been like 15 years ago, I picked it up just because I could have a nice clean copy of I'll Never Do It on a Christmas Tree. Oh, what would Santa think of me? As in, he will never urinate on a Christmas tree. But anyway, yeah, I do remember this movie from when it first came out back in 91 or 2. My parents took me to the movie theater to see it. And I distinctly remember being a bit scared at parts of it and sad at parts of it because as much as you think of Rodney Dangerfield as pure comedy, there's some serious situations going on in this thing. But yeah, I actually like this one. I've heard this movie take a lot of flack, but I still kind of enjoy it, and I especially love the Christmas sequence. And I'll Never Do It on a Christmas Tree is a classic. Deal with it. All right, we're only on movie number 3 out of 4 here, but this is my absolute favorite Christmas movie that isn't a Christmas movie. Actually, it's just simply one of my favorite movies, period. And I don't know how on brand this is for me, but here we go. Grumpy Old Men from 1993. So I actually saw this in the theater with my folks when it first came out, and I even loved it back then, even at like 8 years old. And I suppose at the time, the basic plot is we got Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau. They're these small town Minnesota dudes. They've known each other all their lives. They've kind of gone from friends to the friend equivalent of an old married couple that's always bickering. And their wives have both passed away. And then this beautiful widow moves in across the street from them because they're neighbors to boot. And Anne Margaret moves in and they start kind of fighting over her. So anyway, strangely enough, it's not necessarily that plot that does it for me. Even though there's some very good dramatic moments to it, most of it is just the comedy. Some of it very broad, some of it very subtle, but just about all of it works. Now, I mentioned liking this right out of the gate when I was 8 years old, which seems a bit strange, but at the time I saw it as a lot of years we would come to South Dakota for the holidays. So one state off from Minnesota, invariably, it would be kind of a winter wonderland already. And of course, this is just, the Christmas part of the country. Everybody just does the lights thing and stuff, like crazy over here. But anyway, so there was that connection, and there was me seeing my own grandfather, parts of him in both Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau, and just hanging on to it from that perspective. And then, the times started changing, and it got to be the late 90s, and so there was already that first little bit of longing for a time and place that no longer exists. I picked this up. This is my original DVD from back when DVDs were still the hot new thing back in, it probably would have been 99 when I got this. And I'm still trying to forget the strange look I got from the checkout clerk when I bought this one. But you don't hear much about this movie anymore, unfortunately. And indeed, I think this was on the budget line already back in the late 90s. But over the years, it's become some nostalgia, kind of seeing myself become a bit of a grumpy old fart myself. And of course, since then, my own grandfather has passed away. And at this point, I look at it and I kind of realize I think I'm slightly turning into Walter Matthau. Minus the Bronx accent. The one and only issue I've ever had with this movie, for a lifelong born and bred, total absolute Minnesotan, he still sounds like he's from New York City. But anyway, in much more recent years, it's become kind of seeing more and more of myself emerging in both Lemmon and Matthau. But in the case of Matthau, me, the doorbell rings and I'm, hold your horses, and, just grumping about it and spending more time being a friggin' grouch than getting off my ass and just going and answering the door, that sort of thing. So yes, it's a movie that I have watched damn near every year since certainly the late 90s when I picked up this DVD. I do have it on Blu-ray now, but it's a twofer. It's got the sequel on it as well. So for artwork reasons, the old DVD. But it's one movie that I absolutely do not see going anywhere anytime soon with me. And if anything, maybe I can chart my own decline with this movie. So even though Grumpy Old Men is my favorite of the lot, I've held off on this one till last because it could just as easily be used as a New Year's movie. But the bottom line is a solid half of it takes place over Christmas and New Year's, kind of that, 1 week there. And there's plenty of imagery, plenty of decorations, some commentary on Christmas consumer culture and all that. But yeah, I guess this is kind of on brand for me, isn't it? Better Off Dead, John Cusack, 1985. And I understand Cusack absolutely hates this movie, but I don't think he has anything to be ashamed of with this one, to be honest. He turns in a really good performance and a very appropriate performance for the character. And really, damn near everyone in this movie turns in a good performance. So there's not really any great deficiencies in the acting department on here. And in that regard, it's a bit of an unqualified success because the script is pretty dang silly. So you'd think everybody would be playing it a bit more broad than they do. But no, unless it's contextually necessary, they play it some degree of believable. There are some characters that are just intended to be caricatures in this, but everything is done in an appropriate manner. So anyway, yes, I consider this one of the two great 80s teen comedies, the other being Heathers, just in case you wondered what side of the 80s teen comedy fence I'm on. But anyway, yes, this is a very dark movie, but at the same time, it's a very surreal movie, and it's done in such a way, and the jokes are so good in this one that it never feels all that heavy. So it's a great success in that regard. It's about as black a comedy as you can make without it getting really macabre. So anyway, the basic plot, if you're not familiar, Lane Meyer, played by John Cusack, is kind of a half-nerdy high school kid, and he loses his girlfriend. He's very clingy to the girlfriend. So when she dumps him, he does not take it too well, and he's going to kill himself over it. And he tries a few times and fails in very funny ways. Now, of course, things work out. He finds someone else, and things work themselves out by the end of the movie. But yeah, really, for how relatively thin a plot that is, it's more of a launch pad for some just great jokes and a very surreal humor. This is also an endlessly quotable movie, as is Heathers for that matter. But yeah, I just absolutely love this one. Now, as for the Christmas part of it, as I said, a solid half of it takes place over the holidays. There's plenty of imagery. There's a very funny bit involving Cusack's parents and a couple of reindeer pajama costume sort of things, and ultimately involving a neighbor. And yeah, it's just, I think it's done incredibly well. Now, for how much I've gushed about this movie, I've only ever owned it on VHS, because this has been on DVD and Blu-ray and 4K now, but when it first dropped on DVD, it was just one of those real quick and dirty slap it on a disc deals. And so I just kind of didn't bother. And then with each new reissue it's gotten, they just seem to take that quick and dirty transfer from the probably mid-2000s and they just upscale it. So this has never had a real decent reissue. This is actually a movie that really needs a proper restoration. I mean, there's flaws in the film on a technical level that could probably be worked out these days and that sort of thing. So yes, I'd love to see a real proper reissue of this, but not that it hasn't happened, but a restoration. I'd love to hear commentaries, and certainly while everybody involved in this movie is still around to talk to, but I have a sinking feeling that Cusack himself is what's kind of kept that from happening, unfortunately. I hope he has a change of heart at some point. But anyway, yeah, I first saw this on Comedy Central back in the late 90s. I would have been 12 or 13, so right on the cusp of, being a teen, not quite high school teen yet. And I suppose I kind of saw the future with this one. It's like, okay, so this is what I'm in for. And I guess that might be why I faced high school with an extra heavy dose of cynicism, which might not have been the worst thing in retrospect. But yeah, I thought it was just, even though the subject matter was so dark, it was done in such a good way that I just thought it was hilarious back then, and it became twice as hilarious once I actually got into high school. And then now I'm just kind of at a point where I can look back at it from a good distance. But yeah, if I do pick up another copy of this, it would probably be on Laserdisc if I can find one. But yeah, until this sees a real decent reissue, I just don't have much of a fire under me to replace my old tape of this one. And on a similar note, I've had the soundtrack album of this kicking around forever on vinyl, and it needs a real reissue. It needs reissued, period. It's been out. It was on CD briefly at one point. I'm guessing there's some sort of legal stuff involved regarding the soundtrack album. But yeah, everything about this needs a reappraisal and a reissue. So, all right, rant over. That's going to be it for today. I'll talk to you again soon.